Today I'm going to explain to you how to service your SureMate. We've got a service manual for this that goes into very great depths about stripping everything down, all the way down to the shaft and pulling out these connectors to replace O-rings. I would caution you about doing that. I do that in a very controlled environment, and I do that very carefully. More often than not, all you need to do is strip this down to the shaft, replace the O-rings underneath, the threaded rings and the fin, inspect your connections, clean them with contact cleaner, and then rebuild it. Pulling out these subsea connections from the keyed housing introduces a lot of room for risk with both damaging the wiring harness inside of it and damaging the connector itself. There's no real good tool to pull this out with, so the manual recommends another connector. It's very easy to damage connections. It's very easy to damage the wiring harness inside of there. There's some screws actually underneath this shaft housing. Those screws can be stripped very easily, so it just seems to introduce more risk with going to the level that the service manual states. That being said, the service manual serves a benefit as well, because in the event that you need to replace those seals, if the centralizer has seen excessively high pressure, like a differential pressure spike, we do provide those instructions. Today I'm just going to demonstrate the basic service on this tool, and more often than not the basic service is enough, and it can be done in the field. So these threaded rings are really the only thing that hold on this fin, and the only thing that holds the threaded rings on are these split shells in this O-ring. So if I remove that, I can then slide that threaded ring off. I want to give you a little bit of caution here though. This is a really good pinch point. I myself have pinched myself quite terribly in this groove. What happens is when you grab it, your finger has a tendency to want to slip into that groove, and then when you pull the ring off, it just shears your finger pad in there. So really what I do is I carefully put it on a flat surface, I grab it right in here, and then I just work it off like that. If these sit with drilling fluid on them, they become very difficult to maintenance. From here, you can either pull the fin off or slide off the other ring. I will pull the fin off. And then I'm going to remove these split shells. And then you can simply grab carefully and work that off. Again, that looked easy, but when it's dry drilling fluid, it becomes very difficult. It becomes very difficult to slide these components off. Once you do that, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 O-rings to replace. Those are critical seals, and that would be enough to replace. To rebuild it, you can simply slide the threaded ring on again, carefully. Put your split shells on. And I want you guys to be careful, because when you're doing this, you're working with this exposed connection here. You don't want to damage those pins or sockets. So you want to be mindful of the other side of this as you're working on one side. Once you do that, you can back that threaded ring all the way up. I'm going to carefully put it on a flat surface. I'm going to slide this back on. All of these seals would be properly coated in DC 111. Next threaded ring can carefully slide on. If these are snug, you've got to push everything down on the shaft. This groove should be wide enough to assemble. This groove should be wide enough to take those split shells. Complete. Remember, contact cleaner can be used to clean the connections on either end. You can wipe the shaft down with a rag, get all the mud out of there. You can use alcohol on the shaft to get any residual mud out of the O-ring grooves. strip down the O-rings, replace with O-rings, reapply with DC 111 O-ring lubricant, and then build up your assembly again.